you want to just walk through, I know that we had discussed this before, that there's nothing on this agenda, but there's a couple items coming up for the following agenda that, I think it's probably good just to touch on and see if there are any questions from any of my colleagues. So if you want to just walk through
Yep.
those couple items for us, and then again, if anyone has any questions,
Yes, so thank you. My apologies, like you said, I don't have anything in writing for you, although Steve Harris did forward something not too long ago. But like you said, we haven't actually prepared the letters. We've been working through that process, but we figured now is a good time to give you guys time to ask questions so that if you have additional questions, when we do actually have the letters ready in 2 weeks from now, we can come back with more answers if you have them. So one is related to, we are going to request a waiver for an RFP for some work that we would like to have the waiver go to Onondaga Earth Corps. And Steve forwarded a document to many of you. Again, we'll have more information in writing. And again, my apologies, but at the next meeting. But Steve, I'm going to let you explain this one. You on the call still?
Steve, you're still there.
You're muted, Steve.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know if you have the document in front of you that I shared. What we have going on is we got a grant that was awarded for $894,000 to do some restoration along Onondaga Creek, basically from the footbridge at Kirk Park all the way up to Temple. And it's all conservation work. It's planting trees, restoring landscapes, managing invasive species. And I'm concerned with the limitations on how exclusive we can be on spec writing. The community has spent a lot of effort supporting Earth Corps, getting them to where they are, and they provide a great summer program, and they do a lot of work for us, and have for a decade. And the spec for the work is for a conservation corps. So, and it's very specific to the type of work they do, which includes about planting 3,000 trees. We'll have a contractor remove a fence on both sides of the creek to improve visibility where that hasn't been done already, and then replant with trees and shrubs that are more appealing and just make it a destination area. This project involves no city dollars. There's no reimbursement. There is money in an account. It's already set up and executed, and we just draw from that account and pay invoices. The Conservation Corps work is estimated to be a little over $600,000 over 4.5 years. So it's a lot in the first 2 years and scales back. And the reason I'm asking to consider this for a bid waiver is, one, it gives us an opportunity to preserve the summer youth programming that we would do as part of this, and that Earth Corps would do for the Parks Department in general. That the funding they had for that was not available this year, and this was going to be a backstop. And now it's even harder with the COVID-19 rules. I'm not sure how a lot of places are going to do programming, but the advantage of this one is they can report right to the creek for work, and then they don't have to report indoors. And then the other is to just make sure we have the minimum qualifications are 5 years of recruiting and employing youth and young adults of the age range, training them in Conservation Corps work, experience planting over 500 trees a year, and then just having the qualified personnel. So that's my background. If you saw my attachment, I have a map that shows where work is going to happen.
I didn't get it, Steve. I'd love to see it though. Where,
I
but
can-
explain to me where's it? It's along the creek to Temple Street?
Yeah.
Oh, so it goes right through.
Mostly inside the fence.
Okay.
From the new canoe launch, all the way up to where it exits at Temple. I don't know what's going to happen from Temple to West Onondaga, that little stretch, but
Yeah.
that wasn't part of the plan for us.
So it's Temple Street south, more or less?
Temple Street south to Kirk Park.
Yeah, okay.
So, counselors, I just want to interject that I want to get to the heart of the reason why we're requesting the waiver. And we're requesting the waiver because, especially during these times, we want to really focus and emphasize that we would like this work to go to our city youth at a time that there will probably be less opportunities in this summer than there are in normal summers. So that's why we're requesting the waiver at this point in time.
So Commissioner, this would be in essence, we would an RFP for somebody to manage the program, correct?
Yeah, we're
Sort of.
requesting the waiver so that we don't have to put out an RFP.
Okay.
Admittingly, part of it is so we can start now too. Because we're going to lose
Well, the waiver, we want to get the waiver because of the city youth.
Yes.
We would be willing to go through the process if the waiver is not approved and start in September. So that's not sorry, Steve, but.
Yeah, thank you.
I do have a question. So this, because Earth Corps, they normally, you have to apply through CNY Works, right? So would these still, so the kids that want this particular job or that are applying for a job for the summer, they would still go through CNY Works, and then is it like they're vetted through CNY Works and then they send the applicants over to Earth Corps? How does that work?
That is a question for Greg. I think they're still going the same way. And I think CMY Works is having some placement challenges, but we would need to get clarification from Greg on that.
So, Counselor Allen, we'll make sure Greg Michael is available at the next one, because that's when we'll have the official legislation in front of you. So we can give him a heads up that you have that question.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Since I don't have it, so it'd be right to Earth Corps, would that be it, Commissioner? That would be we want to give it to
Yes.
Earth Corps?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The work to get Onondaga Earth Corps.
So can I ask a question, Councilor Carney?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, Commissioner, if you were to bid it out, you're saying that the kids wouldn't have the opportunities for these jobs?
I think that, in speaking with Steve, that there's a chance that another organization could also bid on it, but they would maybe not be based out of Syracuse, and not as many of our area youth would be utilized. And we also just don't think that, like Steve said, based on the way that it was written, that they have to have 5 years experience, that there may not be many out there that actually meet the requirements. And Steve, you can hop in on this part if I'm incorrect.
I heard him, but I appreciate that, but I'm just going to ask for future reference because I have a real issue with waiving bids. So if you can start now, looking and see if there's anyone else out there that could possibly do this, and we can actually put the language in on how we need to see it. But I just don't do those waivers. I don't like those.
And so I do want to just emphasize that we have left enough time that if this does not go through, or if you're not comfortable with it, that it won't impact the work, that we would have enough time to go through the process and have the work start in September.
Okay. I don't know if anyone else has any other questions on this.
I'd like to ask you, Councilor Carney, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Okay, so just so can I recapitulate and then you tell me if I have the story right? So we have 800,000 roughly to do new work near Kirk Park. I'm looking at the map, seeing everything that's going on. And we just want to be able to authorize Onondaga Earth Corps to be the agent while waiving the bid, correct?
Yes.
So, how will this impact Onondaga Earth Core? Do we think that we'll see an increase in jobs, or will this just be, like as Steve was saying, it's obviously funding is hard with everyone during the COVID crisis. Will this just maintain Earth Core in its current trajectory, or will this result in an increase in staffing and opportunities for Earth Core?
I specifically can't answer that, and I don't know if Steve can. I'll let him chime in, but I am writing these questions down because, again, when we have Greg Michael or a representative from Onondaga Earth Core here in 2 weeks at the next one, we will make sure that he has that type of question, because that's an obvious question that I think a lot of people would want answered right now.
And I was just about to say, Steve, you mentioned, spacing my question. I had one just on the tip of my tongue. You were mentioning the 5-year criteria, that whoever gets this funding needs to have 5 years experience in doing this. That criteria came in the grant. That was criteria set by the grant, or where is that criteria coming from?
That is the minimum qualifications I'm proposing if we have to do an RFP.
Okay, so that would be a qualification you would put in, should we decide to RFP?
Yeah.
I mean, is there anyone even out there doing similar work to Onondaga Earth Core?
There are conservation corps. There's one based out of SUNY Morrisville. There's one in Buffalo. I suppose you could say Julie Holmes is doing something similar. I mean, they're focused on urban gardening. What a lot of conservation corps have in other communities is they're recognized as an authorized agency, like Oil and Water Conservation District, which allows municipalities to enter into agreements with them because of the specialized work they do.
Well, Commissioner, could I ask, why wouldn't the City Parks Department just enter into a partnership agreement with them? Why we would have to even bid this out? I mean, have we talked to law about this? I mean, this would be like a simple, like a joint effort, and it doesn't seem like it'd have to be bid out as a contracted service, especially when you're training young adults and youth.
So I can't answer that, but I have not reached out to law about that, but I'm taking notes so I can reach out about that as an option moving forward as well.
Yeah, I think even as you mentioned sorry, Councilor Hogan, were you done?
Okay, no, that's it. I mean,
yeah. So Steve, you mentioned but I don't think there's anyone locally hiring local Syracuse youth like Onondaga Earth Core, correct?
Not for conservation work. Not like this. I mean, like there's similar age groups, different program focus.
Okay. Yeah, I think that covers my two questions. So I would just like to know those two things, Julie, that you wrote down. One, is this going to increase
the jobs they have, right?
Jobs, yeah. And then I think Steve just answered my second question. If there's no one else doing this kind of work, then I mean,
what I can say about the Earth Core is almost everything they do is kind of a fee for services. So if they don't have the fee, they don't do the service. So right now, I know that each kind of program element has its kind of staffing cycle where there's a certain amount of full-time people, and then there's a summer program that supports it. And that's when they have a lot of youth on the street. And I don't know what they have planned. Normally that was a program supported through the Research Bureau. And I think those funds they don't have this year, they're being used for something different, or they're not around. I don't know. So obviously we're asking them to do deliverables that would have the resources to do that deliverables. What the staffing would look like, I don't know. And what they can do considering the limitations on group size and how people will get around. No matter what group is doing this kind of work right now, like that, you can't share tools. So any organization has to be thinking in multiple functions. So I'm not sure what that applies to. It's my COVID ramble. to you,
Okay,
councilors.
thanks, Steve. We will get you the documents in advance to all of you. Thank you again for hearing us out on this topic. I do have one other one, but are there any other questions about this one?
I was going to say, is the next step that they get a budget to us to present for consideration? And they be available for the next study session? The next Parks Committee meeting, I mean?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the only other one, again, this is an agenda item that we haven't put together, just been a little busy in parks these days. But it will be coming to you in the next meeting, but just the Syracuse Parks Conservancy, which we have an MOU with, whose sole purpose is to support the Syracuse parks. And they have been doing a much better job in the last year or so in engaging our residents and our businesses for that purpose. But they have put in for their annual allocation of $9,000. They have provided their budget to me, which we're just right now reworking because one of the programs they were going to sponsor has been canceled. So that's why there's a delay. But I just wanted to know if there was any questions about that in advance. But that is an item that I would be coming 2 meetings from now, or 2 official meetings, study sessions to discuss.
Commissioner, I know you and I had already talked about this, but I would just ask that, the next standing committee meeting, when it's presented to us, that someone from the Parks Conservancy, if they could give not a full presentation, but a little bit of maybe what they've done and what they're planning on doing, this year with the funding. And I know it's sort of up in the air a little bit because, like you said, we had to, move some things around because one of the things is not going to happen. But if someone could just from Parks Conservancy come and speak about, what they've done and what they're planning on doing.
Absolutely. And I will say to their benefit, we could talk more about this in 2 weeks, but to their benefit, I am relying on them heavily right now to fill in a lot of our gaps right now so that we don't have to be fully dependent on city budget or city resources. But, if they exist to support the parks, right now they're getting sponsorship for us, and they're going to be funding personally some of our programming that we'll be releasing here soon. So they will be happy to come and attend that, but thank you. And those are the only 2 items that I wanted to give you an opportunity to discuss in advance. It's been a little quiet in parks as far as meeting with you guys, just because we've been put on pause, but we're still moving forward and still busy in a lot of aspects. So very busy in a lot of aspects.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or anything further from Parks? Okay. All right. I think we're all set. I'll call the meeting,
Okay.
because there's, nothing that we have to vote on.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.